So, when you think of Australia's One Nation Party, what image comes to mind? Well, what if that image is, well, a little outdated? We're about to dive into one commentator's surprising on-the-ground observations, and they suggest the party's supporters are changing in ways you probably wouldn't expect. Okay, so to really get what might be shifting here, we have to start with the stereotype. Because there's this really powerful caricature of the typical One Nation voter. And according to our source, it's an image that's often pushed pretty hard by the media. Wow, I mean, that is a really provocative phrase, isn't it? But according to political commentator Ian Plimer, this is the exact caricature some media outlets paint of One Nation's supporters. It's obviously designed to be shocking, and it sets up a powerful contrast for what he claims he's seeing in reality. Right, so this is the key thing to remember. This description isn't being presented as fact at all. Instead, it's being framed as a media-driven stereotype. The speaker basically uses this caricature as a jumping-off point to argue that what he's actually witnessing at recent events is something completely different. All right, so if that's the stereotype, what's the reality? Let's look at the first-hand account of who is actually showing up to these One Nation functions. Because according to this observer, the crowd looks absolutely nothing like that caricature we just saw. And, the contrast here is just night and day. Instead of that extreme caricature, the anecdotal reality he describes is one of bankers, stockbrokers, farmers, and builders. It's a whole spectrum of professionals and business owners, people described as just average Aussies, who apparently are no longer afraid to be seen supporting the party. So what's the unifying feeling here? If it's not the ideology from the caricature, what is it that's bringing this really diverse group of people together? Well, the source pinpoints one powerful overriding sentiment. And it all boils down to this one phrase, heard over and over again. It's a simple, raw, and pretty powerful expression of just frustration. This feeling of having had a gutful is presented as the absolute core driver behind this entire political shift. Now, this feeling isn't spread evenly across the country, not by a long shot. According to the source, this frustration is especially concentrated in rural and regional Australia, a group that feels more and more overlooked. And we're not talking about some small niche group here. We are talking about 9 million people. That number really gives you a sense of the sheer scale and the potential political weight of this demographic. It highlights why their feelings matter so much. So this slide really gets to the heart of why they feel this way. The argument goes something like this. Rural Australia sees itself as the economic engine of the whole nation, producing everything the cities need to function. Yet they feel consistently taken for granted and even abused by both major political sides. The message coming from them is loud and clear. They've just had enough. So you gotta ask, what does this all mean for the established political order, particularly for the conservative coalition parties that have for a long time counted on these votes? This is where we start to get into the potential long-term political fallout. And this is the million-dollar question posed directly in the source material. It really frames the central challenge for Australia's traditional conservative parties. Are these voters gone for good? Or is there some way to win them back? Well, according to the speaker's anecdotal take, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's way more complicated. You see, these voters feel they've been burnt very hard, so that trust is broken. They're not rushing back to anyone. Instead, they're just sitting and waiting to see what the coalition does next. The big takeaway here is that any kind of reconciliation is going to be a slow and probably pretty difficult process. And that leaves us with this one last pretty big thought to chew on. The source focuses on a shift towards One Nation, but the implications here are actually much broader. It raises a really fundamental question about the future of our politics. When a huge group of what the source calls average Aussies feels abandoned by the mainstream, what does that mean for the entire political landscape?